Welcome back to the Pathfinders podcast, where we dive into the career journeys of great people with exciting paths. Our conversation is going to align with the Pathfinders methodology. We'll hit on the career maps of our guests, a representation of their professional journeys, past, present, and future. We're going to break these out into skills, roles, accomplishments, achievements, some education, and maybe even some of the fun stuff. The cool piece about this is we're also going to hit on their personal board of advisors, those multiple mentors that helped guide them on this journey. We'll share these episodes on LinkedIn and the other podcast platforms, so be sure to follow and comment along the way. The quote for our guests today, always like to ask that favorite quote: everything can be taken from a person but one thing, the last of the human freedoms. To choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. You guessed it, Viktor Frankl. Bob Goodwin is the president of Career Club. He's a LinkedIn top voice, I think in a bunch of different categories now, and a Cincinnati-based member of the Harvard Business Review Advisory Council. I just learned that recently, actually. I should have known it a long time ago. He hosts The Work Wire with SHRM CEO Johnny C. Taylor Jr. and Career Club Live. That's where we first met, actually. He interviews top global executives and some really, really interesting people. Please go check it out. Oh, and by the way, he's done this more than 150 times. So Bob loves to talk, and he's really good at what he does. He's always talking about these different topics around resilience. He does workshops tackling burnout, disengagement, stress-related healthcare costs, thinking about the ROI. He's providing strict strategies to align personal values with the company goals. And he's also an executive coach. Very, very good one. I've referred him a couple of different places. He helps leaders enhance performance and job satisfaction. His expertise equips companies to build resilience and drive sustainable success. So in a moment, we're going to invite Bob to the show, but we have to make sure that we listen to him a little bit today, because it's interesting that he's a New York Times crossword puzzle addict. His longest streak almost gets to a full calendar year, but right now he's about 3.5 months. So without further ado, let's invite Bob up to the stage. Bob, how are we doing today?
I'm doing great, Pete. How are you?
Fantastic. Hey, what happened? Why did the streak die?
It was, so if you're a crossword puzzle nerd, there's something called a rebus, which is where the block that you're filling in is maybe more than one letter. It might be a symbol. It might be something else. And I can't remember what it was now because I tried to purge that from my memory, but it was something super, super tricky. And I just didn't catch on to what they wanted me to fill in the blank with.
So we could have a crossword puzzle that uses a symbol, not just letters?
Oh, yeah. Like if the answer was cat in the hat, it might be C, the @ sign, T, in the H, @ sign, T, or just @ sign. Yeah.
All right. So this is like in math, whenever they started putting letters with it and all the different signs and everything. I took a lot of math classes going through master's of mechanical engineering degree, but holy cow. And good luck as you keep building up your streak.
Yeah, I think I'm bummed out because I'm pretty far. I've completed it, but I didn't get the happy music. So something's not right. So when I'm done with you, I'm going to go figure out where I did wrong.
All right. Good luck. Whenever we post this, you'll have to share what the success of the puzzle that day was. I'm going to stick to Wordle and some of those other games in that one.
There you go. I'm down for that.
When you were growing up, did you aspire to be a crossword puzzle extraordinaire, or was there something
else? No, I didn't want to be. I didn't want to be a crossword freak. What I did want to be was an astronaut. So okay. I'm going to age myself, but when I was a little kid, that's when the astronauts first landed on the moon, and so watching that on TV, then all the magazines had that on the cover, and I just thought that was like the coolest thing I'd ever heard of.
And so did you go to school to be an astronaut then?
Of course I did. No. I went to school to go have fun, which I did a really good job of,
nice.
But ended up getting my degree in finance. So here's something you don't know about me, Pete. I crammed 4 years of college into 7.
Oh,
So
wow. Okay. You're a real underachiever in some regards.
I'm a huge underachiever. So I ended up working in a shipyard one summer, and that was hot, 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 doing the lowest man job that you can do in a shipyard. And what occurred to me was I wanted to figure out how money works, because I just saw these people working so hard, clocking in and out, clocking in and out. So long story short, I majored in finance. University of Tennessee, go Vols, just won the College World Series and ranked 7th, I think, right now in football.
Not too shabby. We have a fair few Vols fans in the community here. You going to make it to any games this year?
I don't think so, but one never knows. I'm open to it.
Okay. And so from the shipyard, did you become an astronaut after college with that finance degree, or where did you go to work after
Almost.
the 24
So I
years?
thought about doing that, but I ended up ultimately choosing a different route of selling copiers, which was
pretty
nearly
much
as exciting.
Copiers, space shuttles, yeah.
It was almost as cool. But the thing back in the day, Xerox was my first job. So I got to Bob finance. So when I graduated, as far as I understood, kind of the 2 main things that I could go do with a finance degree was go be a banker, and they didn't pay any money, or go be a stockbroker, and that was like cold calling people while they're having dinner, and that didn't sound very fun either. So Xerox was doing on-campus recruiting, and at that time, getting a sales job with Xerox or IBM was like getting an MBA in sales. They were the best of the best. And I knew I'd be in sales because I'm an extrovert, and that was never much of a question. It's more a matter of selling what. And so, yeah, my first job was at Xerox.
Okay. And if you think back to that, about 7-8 years ago when you started your career?
Exactly.
Yeah. What were some of the first skills that you developed in that? Was it called a sales role? That was what we called
account executive. Yeah, I mean, literally cold calling in first in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and then in Pinellas County and St. Pete in Florida. Okay. And I mean, that is the lowest of the low level jobs. When you're knocking on a dentist office door or walking into a real estate place, and who would I talk to about your copying needs? It's like, oh my gosh, not another copier salesperson. So just straight up hard work, persistence. I think one of the things you might ask me is how my college degree was utilized, if at all.
Yeah.
And it was actually a very pleasant surprise, because like you could lease a copier. Well, Mr. Bob, is this going to be an operating lease or a capital lease? All of a sudden we're like into accounting stuff. And like, I actually knew what the difference in those two was and why it mattered and why you make a decision. And so I am extremely grateful that, my college degree was in the language of business, because the language of business is numbers. Yeah. And, I was extremely surprised at the time, because I thought my degree would have nothing to do with anything ultimately. And it had everything to do with everything, because again, the language of business is numbers. And thankfully I graduated from school speaking enough of that to be, competent in the real world.
At some point, this world of numbers transitioned beyond Xerox. Whenever we look at your LinkedIn, we'll see that you're no longer working there. So what made you look elsewhere, and or were there some people that kind of prodded you? Maybe you got kicked out. I don't know, right?
Based on my academic career, that would not be an illogical conclusion. Just not true. At the time, God, I can't believe I'm saying this. I feel like Fred Flintstone. But computers, personal computers, all that stuff is coming online and more mainstream. And the internet was still like incredibly early days. And I liked computers. I thought that stuff was fun. And, in college, it was Fortran and job cards and just all this horrible stuff that looked really uninteresting to me. At Xerox, they actually invented mouse icon technology. Like this has been around forever. And I'm like, well, I know how to do that. That's pretty easy. And started learning more and more. I'm like, I think I want to sell computers. And Xerox had a computer line. And they're like, yeah, no, we don't take people from the main business and put them in the computer part of the business. We hire people from, IBM or wherever. And I'm like, well, that means I don't want to work here anymore because fax machines, typewriters, and copiers are not that interesting to me.
Yeah.
And so I went to a computer company, very small, and that was fine. More cold calling, kind of learning more prospecting and sales skills. But I was looking for another job, and I found Dun and Bradstreet. And Dun and Bradstreet, for people who don't know, is essentially the credit bureau for businesses. So if I'm going to do business with Pete Schramm's company, I might pull a D&B report to see if this guy actually pays his bills or not. And that was a great fit for me because there's a combination of finance, because it was, again, credit and things like that, and sales. I'm like, well, I'm good at both of those things. So Dun & Bradstreet had a really long run with them, moved a bunch and, increasing levels of responsibility, blah, blah, blah. And then, then the .com thing started happening, and that was super interesting to me. And I wanted to be part of that. So I wanted to go directly into, a tech company. And, what I figured out was that they wanted people that already had tech experience or that you had worked at a major consulting firm, like Ernst & Young or at the time KPMG, Accenture, a company like that.
Yeah.
And so I got a job at E&Y in New York and helping lead business development on American Express. Again, I understood finance, I understood sales, I was learning more about tech. And long story short, ended up falling into market research, consumer insights, data and analytics, which is where I spent most of the next 20 years doing that stuff. So again, numbers oriented, insights oriented, and also kind of opened up a whole world of marketing to me.
Okay, so over those 84 years of your career, were there certain people, maybe on your personal board, Bob, that helped guide you as you were making some of those transitions? You said, hey, I kind of like these computers. Did you bounce some ideas off different folks along the way? Maybe at a small computer company, maybe from, your almost a decade in college. Who were those folks that helped you?
Yeah, so I remember at Xerox, there was a lady named Ann Lutz, and, I don't know that there was an exact piece of advice that she gave me, but it was encouragement.
Yeah.
Like, basically, particularly as you're young in your career, she's like, you're going to be very good at sales. You've got the right personality. You've got the right work ethic. People like you. You're smart. You understand what to do. So, but learning how to be a really good salesperson takes a while. And you have to, so just that encouragement that she gave me was really helpful. I would say, Pete, we know each other pretty well at this point. I would say that sometimes there are anti-board members.
Yep.
If I could coin something, or maybe you've already got it, but I remember at this small computer company I alluded to, and this is when personal computers were really getting networked, and you didn't have to have a mainframe anymore. Like you could actually get some pretty cool technology for not a ton of money. And I remember the owner of the company, we were losing deals to PCs, and he's like, personal computers are personal computers. They're not designed to be networked and tied together. And I'm kind of like, well, be that as it may, that's what people are buying. And so, just having enough conviction that not every bit of advice that you hear is actually true or right. And so being able to suss that out. And then I always felt very fortunate and had some really good mentors at Dun & Bradstreet who believed in me, got me promoted. And again, I think it's a combination of hopefully doing good work and raising your hand.
Yep.
And then, trying to build a robust network inside the company so that people knew who I was, what I was doing. So when opportunities presented themselves, at least I was on the consideration set, right? One other one, just super quick, because I hope this resonates with somebody, is I was working in Philadelphia, and my boss, very strong personality, not all in a bad way, in a lot of, very charismatic in a lot of ways. But I don't know if it was ignorant, arrogant, or some bad combination of both of them. But I was like, I can do this by myself. I don't need you to come on my sales calls with me because I'm awesome.
Yeah.
And then we started making sales calls together. And it's like, we like really complemented each other quite well. And this guy's my boss. And, after a while, it's like, oh crap, George can't go with me. I like making sales. Like we're a team. And I think that's where I really started learning more about the benefit of doing things in a more team orientation, which I know would tie to a personal board of advisors. Like, this is not a solo sport, it's a team sport, and starting to allow more people on my team.
So a couple of things in there, Bob. Anne was right that you were really good with people, and that you are a very good person. You've introduced me to a fair few folks, and they always say the same thing, and I'll say the same thing. And you've been quite a guide to me. So some of the comments I said earlier in jest, but with love, because you're the real deal. And just a shout out to the people that are listening, right? Bob walks the walk and talks the talk, and also prioritizes, family and what matters most through and through. So what you get and what you hear is what you see. And I butchered that, but you get the idea, right? Bob is who Bob is, and that's really, really important and really special. And you don't always get that. So it's cool to see how they saw that. What was that, 6 years ago now, whenever you were at DMV?
7, but who's counting?
Right. Yes, geez. I thought I was a numbers guy. Okay, so you're progressing along, you're learning all these things, you're building the transferable skills, but you're not working for DMV right now. You're not working for Xerox right now. You're doing all these podcasts, you're coaching, you're working with the head of SHRM. That's pretty. Let's just take a second and say, hey, congratulations, right? So how did you take this wild step into running your own business?
Because it wasn't as wild as it sounds, because, I told you that, the last 20 years I've been in this market research, consumer insights, data and analytics world, which I love. And because it's into the psychology of why people make decisions like they do. Like, why do we pick this ketchup instead of that ketchup? Why do we buy this TV and not that TV, whatever? And I think all that stuff is really interesting, and some of the very counterintuitive reasons people make decisions. But along the way, so I learned a ton about sales and marketing. You're leading the engagement for Procter & Gamble or Coca-Cola or Samsung. Like, these are not small marketers, and you learn a lot about marketing trying to meet their needs. But along the way, for at least 15, 18 years now, helping people in job transition. I love to network. You know that about me, Pete. I love to connect to people. That's one of my superpowers. And when you're a networker, people who are looking for their next job are actively networking. And we'll call Bob. He's nice. He knows a lot of people. He'll help you. And I got my 10,000 hours in with helping people just completely on the side. There was no business. It was just call Bob. He's nice. He'll help you if he can. And what I noticed was, one, the emotional, psychological toll job search takes on people. They're just beat up. They're like, their self-esteem gets worn down to nothing. Two is they don't really know what they're doing. Like, why would you be good at this? Who's a professional job seeker? Like, you're really good at, engineering or finance or sales. Why would you be good at being a job seeker? Because you probably aren't. And so because I saw that Pete, what do you want to be when you grow up? What kind of role are you looking for? I don't know. That's a good question. It's like, well, that's a terrible answer, because if you don't know what you're looking for, how can somebody help you when they're networking with you? If
Yep.
you don't know where you want to go, I don't know the directions on how to get there. So I put together a master class on job search that was basically marrying, some kind of psychology, kind of emotional support kinds of qualities. Because again, this is a human being, not a cell on a spreadsheet, plus the kind of strategic and tactical things that a job seeker needs to do. And I think we could zoom out not very much and go, anybody managing their career needs to do. What's your unique value proposition? How do you talk about it? Who's the target audience for this? How do you reach them? Those are all things marketers would think about all day. Well, a job seeker or anybody looking to grow in their career needs to think about those things too. So the pandemic was really shockingly the catalytic event. I was at my last company crushing it. I opened up Wall Street for us and it was super fun. But I wasn't having fun. I was being successful, but I wasn't having fun doing it. And then with the pandemic, and people, 20 million people, 30 million people got laid off this month. I'm like, man, if this isn't the time to go start Career Club, I don't know when it is. And, having been in the workforce now for 10 years, I was able to, think, what do I want to do? What do I want to do? How do I take my own medicine of what are you good at? What do you care about? And how can you support yourself? And that Venn diagram of those three circles. What are you good at? What do you care about? How can you make money? And for me, that was starting Career Club in 2021.
So you talked about a lot of different pieces there. What do you do at Career Club? I'm a so-and-so kind of person, and I call you when I'm facing XYZ problem, and you sprinkle on this kind of magic solution, and it results in I'm happy because X is occurring now.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So there's a B2C side of this, which is helping individual job seekers. Over time, this has become more ministry for me than commercialization. And so, but, I told you I wrote this curriculum called Making Your Own Weather, and you read the Viktor Frankl quote at the beginning of this. And the underlining of all of that is autonomy. We have choices. And so if I've lost my job and, I'm afraid, I think it was wrong why they let me go, whatever. All those kind of victim feelings can kind of kick in. And what I'm saying with that title of Making Your Own Weather is I'm not denying that it's raining outside and that it's cold, but you can go make your own sunshine. You don't have to sit in the rain. You can make your own weather, and that's autonomy. So there's the course that we did. I'm a huge believer in community. So it's one reason I named it Career Club, because again, it's a team sport and we need to be in community with other people. And sometimes I think a personal board of advisors can be for a season, right? And so being in community is really, really important. And then showing people, again, most people are not professional job seekers, so they just don't know what to do. And as a friend of mine says, people are doing the best they don't know how. And showing people what to do, and then doing one-on-one with folks. On the B2B side of it, we saw that outplacement services, so you've lost your job and they're going to help you with your resume and stuff, are not very good. And there hadn't been any innovation in that. And again, they sort of treat people like units, not like human beings that are feeling loss and a bunch of emotions. So we created something called Next Placement. So that's for companies who want to do the right thing for people when they have to make a hard decision about letting go of some folks. And then where the business has really kind of gotten reoriented is executive coaching. Many of the things that we would talk about with our job-seeking clients apply almost completely to somebody who's working, but might be feeling burned out, stressed out, feeling like work-life balance is out of whack. And so, helping people develop new strategies on how to deal with pressure, how to deal with change, And then again, I think very consistent with the amazing work that you do and why I'm such a fan of yours, if I could return the favor, is, helping people have more intentionality with their career, and then have actual strategies and tactics to go start deploying to get to where they want to be, rather than what I call a pinball strategy, which is, you sort of bounce off the last thing that hits you, right? And so, well, why you work there? Well, my boss called me. Well, why don't you work there anymore? Because they fired me. Well, why don't you? It's like, well, all these things just keep happening to you. You need to be happening to your career, not just being reactive to things that are happening to you. And so, when people start to, again, this is a huge concept of autonomy, choice, and helping people realize that you've got way more choice. You always get to choose your attitude. You always get to choose your actions. And building on the great work that you do, you get to choose who you associate with. And how do you pour into their lives, and how do they pour into yours?
Choose your action and choose your people. I love that part. And you talked about how it's easy to sometimes get blown away whenever the weather gets windy, right?
Yeah.
It could blow us off our path. And so, Bob, talk a little bit about some of this Pathfinder's methodology and somehow the pieces in preparation for the session today, right? Thinking about your career map and thinking about this personal board of advisors concept, where do you find the value in that? And do you think it might have helped you if you knew about this structure or this framework a little bit earlier in your, probably up to 11 years career now?
Yeah. So it's funny. No, I'm definitely late to the party, which again is why I appreciate what you've written and everything that you've put together, because I had a pinball strategy career mostly. And then I think this will, kind of in a cringy sort of a way resonate with some people, is there have been more than one job that I left of my own volition, but I was running from something, not running to something. And may not have always been the best choice. I stole this from a friend of mine. Good judgment comes from experience, and experience comes from bad judgment. So, there's a second quote for you, Pete. But there's decisions that I've made that had I had a better structure, I probably wouldn't have made. Now, I'm not a person that lives in the world of regret, so everything works together for good if you allow it to. But what I will say, and I think that, again, for people that think, oh, wow, owning your own business, that sounds so cool. Like you don't have to take orders from anybody anymore. I have more than ever surrounded myself with people who play different roles for me. So whether it's a spiritual advisor, a strategy advisor, an encourager, somebody make me laugh, but having a real community, because having your own business, as you know, is not easy, and having different people that you can go to for different things is key. I mean, I'm very relation oriented to begin with, so part of this is quite natural for me. But being vulnerable and saying, hey, this isn't going as well as I had thought that it was going to go. And I know you think I look like I'm doing great, but it's not as great as it might look. I need some advice. And gosh, that's just been a total game changer for me, is having that effectively a board of advisors.
So doing it proactive, having it with a little bit of a plan, putting some thought into who those people are, and getting a little bit of support structure before you need it. I love how you weave subtly the bits of faith into there. And Bob, I'm holding up for just the listeners, not on video, the Pete copy of Pathfinders, right? It's very difficult for me to give this away because it's all marked up. And on the inside, there's contents with a lot of notes in here many of pieces of feedback from Bob. And I just wanted to thank him again for some of the pieces that are going to fuel second edition of Pathfinders, navigating your career map with a personal board of advisors. He suggested again here some of those different potential board seats, right? Of, your legacy, your faith, for grounding. So just coming back to those, I think it was almost, 7 or 8 months ago that you shared some of those different pieces. So that Bruce Lee quote that I think I'm probably going to say on every one of these episodes, right? Bob iterated it again, that you absorb what is useful, you discard what is not, and you add what is uniquely your own. So Bob shared some of his different career journey here, and hopefully everybody's able to take away one, little nugget or piece and listen to his podcast as well, to hear more of those stories over time. Bob, we're nearing the end of the show. Can we go into the quick fire questions here?
I serve at your pleasure, sir.
Wonderful. To your yes. The book that you recommend most to others
is Man's Search for Meaning, back to Viktor Frankl, because he was a Holocaust survivor. He lost his entire family in the Holocaust, and he was the sole survivor. And the reason that he survived, as he tells the story, is that he found purpose and meaning in something that looked hopeless and horrible. And what his purpose was, just to double click on that, was how to serve other people. And when he could get his mind off of himself and how to serve other people, it gave him a reason to wake up today. It gave him a reason to keep going. And, I'm struggle to think of a situation that would be more horrible than what he went through. And he emerged optimistic and hopeful.
Does that feed into some of the best professional advice you've given or received?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And what would some of that best advice be?
Well, again, I'm going to go back to the quote, which is like, the last of the freedoms is to choose your attitude and your actions. And what I tell people is nobody can take that away from you. However, you can give it to them. You can give it to them. And sort of a related quote would be Nelson Mandela, where he says, bitterness is like swallowing poison and waiting for the other person to die. So, when we're harboring anger, resentment, things like that, then I'm essentially giving you my autonomy and my agency because I'm just going to stay mad because it's my right to be mad. And what you did was wrong. And that could all be super true. It's just not helping. And in that case, you've given your autonomy and your agency to somebody else. You can reclaim it. But I just want people listening to know nobody can take it away from you. It's always yours to have and or to reclaim.
And sometimes we need that little bit of a nudge or that little bit of a guide that says, hey, Bob, you put together your ikigai in some of our first conversations, what you love, what you're made for, what the world needs, what you can get paid for. Bob, I don't think you're doing that anymore. And you might not realize this, but you let the weather get windy and blow you off your path. You're not owning your autonomy is not yours anymore. You're not what you set out to be.
And absent, a board of directors, people that you feel safe with, people that you trust, people that you respect, you may never get that feedback.
Yeah.
And to your own peril.
Bob, thank you for joining us today. I'm going to go ahead and do a little recap of our session. I just took a couple of notes while we were talking here. So let's dive into this story that we heard today from this crossword puzzle extraordinaire, starting his career journey with a pinball strategy of sorts and astronaut aspirations. He successfully crammed 4 years of school into 7, and that led to shipyard sweating and then sales at Xerox with a finance degree. He found that there was no money in banking, and stockbroker was, not really that much fun breaking up dinner time sessions. So he instead tried to make cold calls selling copier machines. This extrovert learned the values of hard work and persistence. Sales and prospecting at a smaller computer company led him ultimately to Dunn and Bradstreet, wielding skills in finance and sales, where he graduated then to E&Y in New York City. The early days of encouragement from a mentor, Anne, helped him drastically. And then he found that not all advice is created equal. Some sucks. But he did learn that complementary collaboration and teamwork can really crush it. Teamwork does win. Market research, data insights, and why people make decisions fueled the creation of Career Club. He's helping job seekers search, not suck, making your own weather in rain or shine. Thanks for sharing that part with us, Bob. It's a team sport, and the community really helps. Bob created Next Placement, which I still love that concept. And so really appreciate your time today sharing this journey about the data-driven connector who's helping guide us choose our actions and help us stop running from places where we don't find meaning for true or best being, and help guide us towards running to the right thing together.